Good, right. Just want to give him a bell then and stir his notions. Go for it, mate. Keep moving. Yeah. All right. Cheers, thank you. A very good afternoon to you, wherever you're joining us on Forces News and our live stream on YouTube and Facebook. The picture you're seeing now is a close-up of HMS Prince of Wales, the aircraft carrier. And as you can see, the radars are spinning. And if you look very closely and intently, you can just see the vessel beginning to pull away from the jetty. Very, very slowly at first. Let's zoom out now and take a look at where she'll be coming in just a few minutes' time. The view right across Portsmouth Harbour here, a beautiful, beautiful day. The harbour has been pretty much cleared of traffic, the last few yachts coming out of the way, and this whole space will be available and open for the carrier to transit through in just a few minutes' time. This is Tim Cooper with you, and we're bringing you the departure of HMS Prince of Wales live. Let's look across the water now to the Gosport side of Portsmouth Harbour, and you'll be able to see scores of people lining the jetty all the way along. Every single time one of these wonderful carriers manoeuvres, the people of South Hampshire come out in force to show their respects to the vessel. And there we have them, all there with their banners. Many of them, as well as local people, will be family members coming to see their loved ones off on their deployment. So that's what we will be seeing today, the deployment of HMS Prince of Wales. And it's a little bit of a movable feast. It may take 20 minutes, it may take 30 minutes, but we'll bring you all of it as we can as we go once more in to have a look at the ship and see the progress she's beginning to make away from the jetty there. Now, closest to us is HMS Queen Elizabeth, who's staying put for the time being at least. You'll see a crane alongside her. But behind the flagship of the Royal Navy is her sister ship HMS Prince of Wales, beginning that journey. So what is she going off to do? Well, quite simply, she's heading across the Atlantic. She'll leave the calmish waters of Portsmouth Harbour, make her way to Outer Spitboy in the middle of the Solent, and then go past the Nab Tower, which is off Bembridge and the Isle of Wight, and make her way along the southern coast of the Isle of Wight, out into the broader English Channel, and eventually across the Atlantic. And she's going for some vital joint working with American allies for the Westlant 23 exercise. And that will see aircraft operating from her flight deck, including the F-35B Lightning IIs, along with helicopters such as Merlin, and also some unmanned aerial vehicles as well. The Mojave system, we understand, is going to be operated from her 4-acre flight deck. So for the ship's company, it's going to be a really exciting time, 3.5 months away, doing some absolutely vital work. And this deployment, as I'm sure many of you will know, has been a long time coming because of the problems the ship had in her recent history. On a previous deployment such as this, she made it all the way out to the southern coast of the Isle of Wight, but then disaster struck. There was a major failure with part of the ship, and that meant she couldn't join in that iteration of Westlant in that year. HMS Queen Elizabeth had to go and do that in her stead, and she had to spend an awfully long time being repaired in the shipyards of Rosyth. Basically, it was reported at the time that an external coupling that connects the outer propeller shaft to the drive shaft had failed, and it caused significant damage to the shaft and the propeller, and some superficial damage to the rudder. She got up to Rosyth on the 12th of October 2022 and was expected to return to Portsmouth in the spring 23. and she did a little later than that. Ship returned to sea for trials after completing repairs on the 21st of July 2023, and a few weeks ago I was lucky enough to be down here doing this in reverse, as it were, watching the ship come in to Portsmouth. So, a bit of an unexpected year of problems for the vessel, but the Royal Navy will be delighted that she's now fully operational once more. If you're just joining us, this is Tim Cooper and you're with Forces News Live via YouTube and Facebook. Hope you're well today as we begin the slow journey of HMS Prince of Wales out of the harbour. If you are watching around the Forces world or around wherever you are, do drop us a message and we'll endeavour to read some of those out for you as we continue with this broadcast. Let's now take a look at some of the people who've journeyed down to Portsmouth today to witness this spectacle. They've come from all over the country. I was chatting with many of them earlier. From as far away as Tyneside, one gentleman had motored down overnight just to be here. And as you can see, there are hundreds of people on the round tower behind me and the walls of old Portsmouth into the distance there. And many of them are seeing off their loved ones. It's always a time for some sadness amongst some people, seeing people off, perhaps for their first deployment, 3.5 months away from the family. But also a time of excitement because they know that is what their kith and kin signed up to do, to be part of the Royal Navy adventure, to serve their country and to be on that world stage. So there we go. Everyone was well behaved there. Well done, everybody. No gestures. We like that. That's good. Anyway, Portsmouth is a very, very busy harbour, and you can see the White Link Victoria of White vessel making her way out of the White Link terminal there, just to our right. And they will stop eventually once the carrier gets near enough, but they don't like disrupting the White Link service, or indeed the Gosport ferry service, very much, because it's a vital lifeline for the Isle of Wight and the people of southern Hampshire. So there goes the Victoria of Wight, and if you listen carefully as the ship passes us, you'll hear a familiar sound, and the residents of these houses are probably quite used to it, but it must annoy them at night. All the car alarms going off on the White Link ferry. The motion sensor technology in the cars is very, very finely tuned, it appears, and we've been here a few hours getting into position and getting set up, and happens on every single ferry crossing. So back we focus now on the scene in front of us. Now it's hard to see much movement from this distance, but she's probably, I'm guessing now, maybe 10, 20 feet off the jetty. She's moved almost parallel from our positioning to her sister ship, HMS Queen Elizabeth. All around the vessel will be the tugs that will be working with her in this part of the journey. The tugs gradually diminish in number the further she gets out to sea, before at the outer split buoy the last of the tugs leave her and she's on her own, except she will have her escort ships. But working with HMS Prince of Wales today are the tugs Tempest, Bountiful, Indulgent, Independent, Suzanne and Christina. And we can just see the first of those tugs beginning to appear, slightly obscured by someone's luxury spa roof garden at the moment, but that is one of the tugs there. And they'll be assisting as deemed necessary by the captain and also the person in charge of the SD Tempest. That's the lead tug that is always right at the forefront, a very, very powerful special tug with azimuth engines that can really thrust in any direction. Absolutely vital for moving this leviathan of an aircraft carrier. Karen Doran has messaged on the Forces News Facebook page, good luck, my boy. See you in December. Shirley Wharton says, good luck to you all on your deployments. Be proud. Safe travels, everyone. Similar sentiments from Alison Gray-Green. Good luck to all who sail on this magnificent ship. Our thoughts are with you. Send us a comment. We'll give you a mention. And that's the rear of HMS Queen Elizabeth, and we swing out. At the present time, if you're just joining us, HMS Prince of Wales is beginning her long journey, and she's pretty much behind her sister ship HMS Queen Elizabeth at the moment, so mostly obscured from our viewpoint. But that means that she's made it safely away from the quayside and is pushing out into Portsmouth harbour. When she's into the harbour, the process will begin where she'll turn around. Currently, her bow is facing towards the town of Porchester and Paulsgrove on the hillside. I forgot where I was for a minute. I thought I was in Plymouth. Yeah, but as I say, she will turn around and then, once that's completed, make her way towards us. If you've not seen this before, it is a spectacle because loads of the ship's company will be lining the flight deck in what they call Procedure Alpha. They'll be in their lovely uniforms lining along, and that's a great thing because it lets them see any family members they can spot in the crowds and lets those said family members have a wave at them. And talking to some of the guys and girls down here today, they've been making phone calls and saying, where are you going to be standing? Which part of the ship will you be on? Can I see you? And lots of people have said, I'll be here, I'll be there, and I'll be waving, which would be lovely to see. We've also had instructions to pick our people, and that's beyond our skills, I'm afraid. There's so many. But there she goes. The island is emerging from the other side of HMS Queen Elizabeth. Becky Allett says, fair winds and following seas to my boy Dylan and all his shipmates. See you in December. Millie Wells is gutted she couldn't be there, but hopefully we'll get there when you return in December. Paul Petty says, safe journey, so proud son, enjoy every single moment of it. Janet Bouzien, good luck to my grandson, safe journey, enjoy every second. Well, thank you very much for joining us here on the Forces News live stream of the deployment of HMS Prince of Wales from Portsmouth to the eastern seaboard of the United States of America, where she'll play a vital role in the Westlant 23 exercise with our oldest allies, the United States of America. At just around 24 minutes past 1 this afternoon, the ship began to inch away from the jetty inside Portsmouth Naval Base. And she's gradually picked up speed and now is beginning to move pretty quickly. The stern of the ship now visible as they begin to turn her. There we see the tugs assisting in that. It really is a precision operation. Well, the Royal Navy have just issued a press release confirming the ship's departure. I could have done that for you because I can see her departing. But it does give us some more information about what the vessel is doing. And they describe Britain's biggest warship sailing from Portsmouth to the USA for 3 months of trials, which will push boundaries of the latest aircraft technology. She'll make history with both combat and resupply drones on deck for the very first time. And trials with F-35B Lightning stealth fighters will expand the UK's striking power for the carrier strike group. So here's how it will play out as another Whitelink vessel ruins our picture. I'm sure they've had a lovely holiday on the Isle of Wight. But back to the mainland for them for now. When the carrier gets into the channel, the ship's company will conduct trials with UK firm W Autonomous Systems, and that's a really significant step because it's going to assess the feasibility of drones delivering supplies to Royal Navy vessels at sea, initially perhaps flying up to 100 kilos of stores in at a time. And the Royal Navy and indeed the Royal Fleet Auxiliary are both experimenting with this drone technology, and it has a potential load of benefits, saving launching large, expensive naval helicopters to perform those missions. So that's the initial phase, because these ships, and one of the beautiful things about being in the Royal Navy is you don't just travel to somewhere, you're always busy doing something, and very often with the carriers it's something groundbreaking. So that's just the journey out to the States. We'll see them break new ground. Once in America, the ship will embark the F-35B stealth fighters, and they've undergone a lot of trials on the Elizabeth-class carriers. And it's 5 years, believe it or not, since the first F-35B landed on a Queen Elizabeth-class carrier. But there's still a lot to learn, the Navy say, and more to be exploited. And by exploiting, they mean using the full capabilities of both the ship and the airframe, the F-35B Lightning II, seeing how they can work together to their optimum capability. So that's going to be hugely exciting when they're out there. It's all about this particular phase of training, learning about how to return the F-35s to the carrier faster and heavier. Now, what does heavier mean? Well, it means with more fuel and more weapons on board. Why is that a benefit? Well, it cuts the time between sorties, allowing the ship to launch more strike missions faster. And that is ideally what you want. You want your planes flying as quickly as possible when that mission is needed. So they're going to do some advanced takeoff and landing techniques testing, which is great. And on top of that, the eastern seaboard of the United States is a bit lumpy in the autumn time. I would hate it. I'm sure some of the sailors on board will wish they weren't when it gets rough, but there's a huge benefit to this in terms of their operational capability, and that is learning to use and take off Lightning IIs in really poor weather conditions. Because if you are in a combat situation, you can't not fly because of the weather. So they'll be learning how to do that whilst out there, and that is incredibly exciting for the team. In fact, Commander Martin Russell, who's in charge of HMS Prince of Wales' air group and flight tech operations, has said, "My team are really excited to tackle the final phase of testing, which will expand the F-35's awesome capabilities even more, and be the first to land and launch new types of drones on our deck. The deck team are ready and raring to go." Once that's happened, they move on to another phase of the ship's capabilities and utilising that 4-acre flight deck using the Mojave drone. Now, this drone can carry a 1,500-pound payload of missiles, rockets or bombs, and it's been specifically designed to land and take off from short runways or flight decks, so ideal for carrier strike operations. Now, trials are going to be lined up to see whether the Mojave can land on the flight deck of HMS Prince of Wales, which incidentally is 901 feet long. So, another vital capability test. And of course, I'm sure many of you will have been watching the tragic events in Ukraine and see how drone warfare has stepped up hugely. Both sides are utilising drones, a cat and mouse game going on between the two sides, one advancing, the other catching up, and so on. Now, the final part of the deployment will see the carrier work with the MV-22 Osprey, which is that unusual cross between a helicopter and an aeroplane where the rotors can tilt into position. The Ospreys are used to transport troops and kit into battle. Sadly, recently there was a crash involving an American Osprey, but they are an incredibly useful and capable airframe. I remember watching them take off from Camp Bastion and the moment where they go from helicopter positioning and tilt to become aeroplane is quite stunning to see. So working with those two, we'll see the carrier again tested once more. It's exciting, isn't it, what they're doing? So much to do during this 3.5 months away. They'll be busy the whole time, and that is what I'm sure everybody wants, because when you're busy, the time goes and you're back with your family quicker. And also when you're busy, you know you're doing really good work for the Royal Navy and for the nation. The reason why this training is so important is that the carrier is building up to the global deployment of the ship in 2025. So the year after next, you'll go off on a global deployment, which will be massive. Really projecting the power of Britain's Royal Navy around the globe in the form of this amazing aircraft carrier. So there we go, that's a quick canter through what HMS Prince of Wales is going to be getting up to. I did a good job of remembering all of that. Kerry Hodgson says, can I put a shout out to all family members, to all PO Prince of Wales crew? We're watching from YouTube. Big shout out to my sailor Jackson. We will miss you. Shell Griffiths says, my lad's first deployment. So proud of you all. Safe travels. Mike Saunders just simply says, bon voyage. Very good, Mike. Tanya Patton, safe trip to my son and all on board. And Nikki Thorrington says, safe travels to you all. Nice sentiments there. Thank you so much for getting in touch, and thank you for being with us today here on Forces News and our live stream. Now, the next bit happens quite quickly, because until this point it's been slow, gradually picking up speed, gradually turning the aircraft carrier around with the aid of those tugs. But in a few moments' time, the bows of HMS Prince of Wales will be facing towards us, and more importantly, facing towards the entrance of Portsmouth Harbour. And then she will begin her journey in earnest. Now, I'm sure many of you know that these carriers are very different to the American, both Nimitz and now the Ford class of carrier, in that they have two islands on board. The towers, I would call them, but they're called islands. The Ford one has windows at the front, and that's where the bridge is. That's where they control the ship operations, the driving of the ship, the positioning, and so on and so forth. The rearward island is where they control flying operations from. Yes, there are windows at the front, as you can see, but there are also windows at the side, so they can look right down onto the flight deck. And it really is quite jazzy in there. They've got a really lovely sort of area of tiered seating and machines and control positions inside that island looking down. And I can only imagine how exciting that must be when you've got multiple airframes taking off. And in this forthcoming deployment, with the desire to test the speed by which they can get F-35 up into the air and down again, that's going to be a conveyor belt of planes taking off. So huge interest that must be, I'm sure, for all of those involved in those flying operations. So, almost the 180 done. She's almost completely turned around. And then in a few moments, the journey in earnest begins. Ashley Connor's been in touch and says, my son's Joshua's first deployment, so proud. Safe travels to everyone on board. Judy Leatherly says, so very, very proud of my grandson who's on HMS Prince of Wales. Kerry Hodgson, thank you. It means a lot to everyone watching. Lots of crew, children watching. They love a party. Brilliant crew, getting excited and emotional for them. Lisa McLean, good luck to my daughter for her first deployment. We're all so proud of you. Good luck to all. Ken Aitken says, safe travels, son. She's a tad bigger than the Ark Royal when you watch me leaving harbour on deployment. Very proud family watching here and in Gosport. Yeah, isn't it a contrast, Ken? I remember filming inside the naval base on the sad day that HMS Ark Royal came in for the last time. I seem to recall it was bitterly cold and everyone felt very sad that day because the Ark Royal was such a famous ship and such a backbone of the Royal Navy, and with her and her two sister ships going out of service, it really did feel like the end of an era for the Royal Navy. And there were real doubts, weren't there? I'm sure you recall at the time, Ken, and many others of you do, that there were real doubts that the Navy would ever see carriers like that again. But as it turns out, we've come out of it with these two carriers that are, no disrespect to their predecessors, worlds apart. Natasha Hollinrake says, safe travels, Cole. Love the Hollinrakes. Linda Graham is wishing Lucy safe travels on her first deployment. Lots of love from Mum and Dad. And Sharon Chater has given us a wave and says, good luck to all on board my son's first deployment. We're also proud of you. Safe travels. There's a bit of a theme there, isn't there? We're getting loads of messages coming through from families whose children are going on their first deployment. Gosh, how exciting that must be, and how strange it must be for the family as well. But as I outlined earlier on, the ship's going to be a busy ship doing some vital work, and if I was 17, 18, maybe 18, 19, 20, whatever the age one is on board, I would still absolutely hate it because it's not really my thing at all. But I would imagine if you love your ships and love being in the Royal Navy, it is going to be one of the most exciting and memorable occasions that you will have embarked upon so far. So wonderful pictures that Chris is getting here of the carrier with SD Tempest right in front, leading the way. She is the primary, most powerful tug in these carrier operations. So the 180 is more than complete now, and she's now moving towards us very steadily indeed. No ships anywhere in the harbour now. All the ships that you might see in the coming shots will either be tugs, police launches, or indeed launches of the King's Harbour Master. The King's Harbour Master manages the port, the shipping movements, and so on, and safety too. And they're just even as we speak, Chris, if we come over to the left here and just look over towards Haslar Marina, there's good reason why this harbour is patrolled, because the ship on the left there with the flashing lights is the King's Harbour Master, or police. Can't quite be sure from this distance. The ship on the right is a pleasure craft that's trying to come out when the harbour is closed to all shipping. So they should really not be making their way out, and they'll be told that in no uncertain terms, one suspects, any second now. And yet already that motor cruiser is turning around and going back to where it needs to be at this time, which is inside Haslar Marina over in Gosport there, because you don't really want to get in the way of HMS Prince of Wales, because I mean, she frankly won't be able to stop and can't stop, and that's why safety is so important and why all of these various police and harbour master launches are out. And no matter how many notices to mariners are issued, and they always are, there's always clear instructions about when the ship's leaving, when the channel's closed. Every time I've been lucky enough to be down here, I always see this similar thing. So I'm sure the Royal Navy would like to send a message out to, check it before you head out what's going on. Saw a swimmer last time. That was most bizarre. Anyway, there she is, right in the middle of what they call Fareham Pool within Portsmouth Harbour. Fareham, the town, is just off to the left. And closer to us on the left, of course, is Gosport. Loads of messages coming through. Thank you so much for getting in touch. It's really, really cool. Wishing the safest of travels to all on board, but especially to my partner who's been working so hard on board with the aircraft. Sending all our love at home. So proud of you, and that's Terry Johnson. Andrea Stoddart says safe travels. Lots of love to my son Jevon, aka Pepe. Oh, my goodness me. Vicky Malthouse says her daughter Jess will be celebrating her 21st birthday whilst on deployment. Now, I hope they have a party in whichever mess deck she's in. Darren Hornsby is incredibly proud of his son Lee, who is also on his first deployment. Fair winds and following seas to all on board, especially to the boys from Gould 2208, all on their first deployment. That's Rachel Crowe. My screen just moved. Laura Baker is giving a shout out to all of the sailors, and particularly ours, to her sister Abby and her partner Jack, off on their first deployment. It's great, isn't it? All these new sailors coming into the Royal Navy, and I guess that the attraction of being on a ship like HMS Queen Elizabeth or HMS Prince of Wales is one thing that will drive people to a life at sea, because it is a very exciting thing. So, here she comes. And you'll notice all around the vessel, right around, are members of the ship's company lining the deck there, which will be great. Which will also mean, as we get closer to the crowds, you'll start to hear the cheers from those all around the harbour here, as the police launch out of your shop and heads out to sea to deter someone else who is trying to come into the harbour. Rachel Fernley is in France watching us. Lucky you, Rachel. And hoping to catch a glimpse of Jaden, who's on his first deployment. Gutted we can't be there or wave to you, says Rachel. Vicky Longworth says, everyone is so proud of you. Cole Bowker, or Boker. If you're just joining us, it's coming up to 2 o'clock here in Portsmouth. And this is Forces News, and Tim Cooper with you as we bring you these lovely pictures of HMS Prince of Wales on her journey to the other side of the world, to America, to do some incredibly exciting things involving F-35s, involving Mojave drones, involving Osprey, and resupply drones. When she's out into the channel, she'll work with a company to the resupply drones. And so there we go. She's really close to us now, just coming up to Old Portsmouth. Stately progress, I would describe this as. Smooth, everything in the right place, because it's a very, very high tide in Portsmouth today, and that's what they always aim for when taking the carrier in or out of the harbour, because there isn't that much room, and they want a high tide to give the maximum depth and width of water, and they also want relatively calm conditions to make it as straightforward and safe as possible, because nobody wants anything to go wrong, and they want them to get out into the Solent with the minimum of drama and the maximum of efficiency. Kevin Breedenbach is watching from Chicago. Gives me goosebumps seeing these ships and makes me homesick. Stephen Stewart says, good luck and Godspeed, HMS Prince of Wales. And look at that wonderful sight on the flight deck. All of those crew members who've been standing there at least, I would say, well over an hour. They line the deck from about 1 o'clock onwards. But they'll want to, because they will want to be there to see if they can catch a glimpse of family or friends. And doesn't it look an impressive sight? Tugs beautifully in synchronization there, each doing what they're meant to do at this point in time. A massive blast from HMS Prince of Wales as she reaches the mouth of Portsmouth Harbour. And in just moments, she will be past us and out into the Solent. Beautiful pictures, and so amazing to see her operational again. It was quite the news story when she broke down so dramatically, but I think all that respect and enjoy the Royal Navy want this to be what we think of HMS Prince of Wales. A beautiful ship flying the flag for His Majesty the King and Great Britain around the world. Well, those pictures say it all without the need for words. Beautiful scenes, waving, everybody waving, cheering, and HMS Prince of Wales goes on her way out into the Solent and to adventure beyond. Already helicopters on the flight deck, a Merlin and a Wildcat. And still the families look on and get that final glimpse. But the good news is they'll be back in time for Christmas, back in December, having hopefully achieved an awful lot in the United States. And they'll be back for Christmas, and that will be very special indeed. And I may be preempting the management team, but I suspect very much will be here to welcome her back. Hope you've enjoyed this live broadcast. My name's Tim Cooper. I've been with you, rambling away for the last 45 minutes or so. Chris Giles has been getting these pictures to you, and we thank you so much for joining us, and we really hope that you've enjoyed watching with us today. Bye for now.